What's going on, guys? Jim Surratt, Stance Custom Support Systems coming at you today. Welcome to the channel. This is our first video. Okay, so a little bit about me. For those of you who do not know me, again, my name is Jim Surratt. I'm the owner of Hammer Strength and Conditioning, the gym that we are currently in. I am an equipped powerlifter, both single ply and multiply. I'm a strength and conditioning coach full-time, and then run the gym part-time in the afternoons. I've been in powerlifting now for probably 15, 20 years almost. Equipped lifting for probably the majority of that. I have a 2,000 pound competition multiply total. I've squatted over 1,000 pounds in competition. Been a strength and conditioning coach for about 12 years now. Worked with a bunch of different populations. And my most recent venture, on top of the gym, on top of full-time coaching, is the development of a line of powerlifting gear called Stance, right? And so the name is evocative of a couple different things. One being obviously the different stances in powerlifting: wide stance, close stance, conventional stance, sumo stance. Obviously you can go close grip, wide grip, but even though it's not really a stance when it comes to bench, as well as just taking a stance on something, right? Taking a stand for something, finding your perspective on it and having your opinion on things, right? So that's kind of where the name came from. And the whole idea behind this is to develop a line of gear that is custom designed for the lifter, right? Precision fit, custom measurements, custom cuts, that kind of stuff. So we're still in the process, right? This has been a very illuminating and eye-opening process. Sourcing gear or sourcing materials, fabric, finding the right type of fabric, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And then finding fabricators or manufacturers who can handle the specifics or the particulars of building powerlifting gear, as well as figuring out what actually goes into making powerlifting gear, right? It's not as simple as taking two pieces of material, sewing them together down the middle and calling it good, right? It can be that simple, but if you want to make it effective and efficient, it's much more challenging and much more complex, I'm learning. So it's an ongoing process, right? It's a long-term development idea. I haven't sold anybody anything yet, so I'm not in hot water yet for not delivering on a product yet, but we're getting there, right? So I've finally found material that I like from a good, reliable source, and I'm looking at a fabricator or a manufacturer that can construct the gear itself. So there's a lot that goes into it that I really had no idea, right? I thought it was pretty simple, like, oh, just, you buy the material, you find somebody to make it, and you're done, right? And really that's what it is at the end of the day. But if you want your design to work well and be effective and actually have the carryover that you're looking for when it comes to gear, there's a lot more that goes into it. So it's, like I said, been a very illuminating and eye-opening and educational experience, but I'm really here for it. I'm really enjoying it. And this is something that I want to develop long-term, not just an acute, 6-month idea. I want to build it out into something long-term. So on that note, what we're going to talk about today is what is gear, right? So gear, simply put, or equipment, but colloquially referred to as gear, is essentially an external support worn by lifters that was originally, I believe, intended to help protect them, right? To stabilize joints, add support around vulnerable areas like the hips, the shoulders, the low back, but then was discovered to add assistive or to have assistive elements, meaning that not only does it support and protect, but it also allows you to lift more weight because of the compressive forces, the elastic forces, or the pseudo-elastic nature of gear. It allowed for the lifting of super maximal weights. And obviously as powerlifters, our whole goal is to lift the heaviest weight possible. Right, so gear developed over the last, maybe 2 to 3 decades. Started with knee wraps, elbow or wrist wraps, and then I think the Z suit or the Champion or something like that. Just like basically a spandex or super tight polyester suit that added a little bit of poundage to your squat. Went from bench shirts to there, went to bench shirts from there. And then over time evolved from single ply to multiply, so one layer versus multiple layers of material, and then saw the inclusion of different types of materials, polyester, rubber essentially, or elastic, and then canvas, right? Those are the three primary materials used in the construction of powerlifting gear. So today we're going to talk about polyester gear, right? I don't have a canvas suit with me here, so we're going to talk about polyester. We're going to talk about specifically single ply, because that's what I'm doing right now. I'm currently training for a single ply meet in July. So we're going to talk about what gear is, how it works, and kind of go down that rabbit hole and see where it leads us. Okay, so like I said, gear is an external support worn by lifters to help provide protection, support, and assistance with a lift, right? Now, a lot of people think that gear is cheating, and it's not. It's not cheating if you're competing against other equipped lifters. If you are an equipped lifter competing in a raw division, surreptitiously or secretly, that's cheating. Gear is not cheating. Gear is just a different sport, right? Or it's a different game. It's the same sport, different game. It's like Canadian football versus NFL, CFL versus NFL, right? Same sport, different game. Okay? So for those of you who think that equipped or gear is cheating, you're wrong, frankly. It's just a different game, right? Different way of doing things. And honestly, it shouldn't matter. You know, like if all things are equal, like if you're a raw lifter and you're competing against raw lifters, who cares if somebody's wearing gear and lifts more than you? That's the whole point of gear, right? If you're a single ply lifter and you're competing against other single ply lifters, who cares if somebody's wearing multiply and lifts more than you? Again, it's going to happen. If you're a multiply lifter and you get out totaled by a single ply lifter, you need to step your game up, right? But anyway, it's not cheating. It's just a different avenue of expression of the sport of powerlifting or the hobby of powerlifting, right? So like I said, today we're going to talk about single ply gear. So we're going to talk about single ply polyester gear specifically. So I have here with me currently, well, I have more than this currently, but this is what I pulled out of my pile. I have 3 different items here. So this is a Titan Super Centurion squat suit. This is a single ply polyester suit. Okay. Titan, I'm not going to go into like a gear review of every piece of or every article of clothing that I have here. But we're going to talk about what the item is, how it works, and what it's supposed to do for you. So a squat suit is a single piece, or at least a single ply squat suit is a single piece construction garment, okay, that has straps go over your shoulders, and then Titan has their harness system. Okay, not every company or not every build has this harness system. Okay. And what it does is as you sit to depth in your squat, right? Depth being a relative term when it comes to equipped lifting. The suit, due to the pseudo-elastic nature of polyester, and what I mean by that is that it's not elastic, like I can't sit here and stretch it. It does have elastic properties, meaning that under significant or sufficient stress or external load, it will deform. Okay, and that's the whole principle behind gear is deformation and restoration, or deformation and reformation, right? So a squat suit, again, you wear it like a singlet. Okay, so it's basically just a thick singlet. The straps go over your shoulders, thighs or the legs ride high on your thighs. And again, as you sit down, there's tension that goes through the straps into the back of the suit, down through the seat and through the gusset or the saddle that creates support. And then again, because of the pseudo-elastic nature of gear, the gear deforms, meaning it stretches. And then because of its reformative, if that's even a word, reformative properties, it wants to return to its natural shape. So it deforms under load. And then when you stand up out of the hole in a squat suit, it assists you because it wants to return to its natural shape, right? So that's how squat suits work. I have a deadlift suit over here. I just didn't grab it. Deadlift suits function very much the same way. The only caveat with a deadlift suit is that because there's no external load loading the suit. So in a squat, when you put a bar on your back and you squat down, there's an external load forcing you into position, right? You are I don't know if you're passive, but you are manipulating the weight in order to maintain control, right? If you let the weight overpower you, you are therefore thereby manipulated by the weight. So when you squat, you are actively resisting the path that the bar wants to naturally take, and you are forcing it into position, right? But you're still kind of a passive actor when it comes to loading the suit, because the weight pushes you into position, the suit loads naturally by virtue of being loaded externally with the squat bar, And when you stand up, the weight or the suit releases and helps propel you back up to extension. With a deadlift suit, it's kind of the opposite, right? Because with a deadlift, you are not being forced into position by the external load. So in order to effectively load or utilize or leverage the suit, you as the lifter have to actively pull yourself into position, right? So you have to create additional tension through your system and then thereby the suit to effectively get carryover from it. And carryover is really just a fancy way of saying how many pounds it gives you or how much weight assistance it gives you, right? So deadlift suits are a little bit different, but they operate under the same concept, right? Tension through the straps, through the seat, and then as you stand up, the backside of the suit wants to return to its natural shape. So it's kind of a reverse deformation as compared to a squat suit, but the same concept applies, okay? So I also have here 2 different variations of bench shirts. Now, bench shirts still operate under the concept or the principle of deformation and reformation. This operates slightly different. So these are both single ply. This is an F8 Ace. It is an open back, which I'm not a huge fan of with single ply. I think with single ply material or single ply shirts, you need greater tension. So the whole notion of single ply versus multiply, and I'll try to limit this, and I tend to get tangential, so I'll try to keep it concise. Poly or polyester adds assistance and support through layers, essentially, right? It's a relatively thin, relatively pliable, and dynamic material as compared to canvas, which is a much stiffer, more structurally rigid material. Okay, so poly provides support through form, essentially, or layering, whereas canvas provides support and assistance through the structure itself. Okay, so with single ply gear, because you don't have as much support through layering, you have to have it tighter in order to provide more compression and more support. So an open back single ply shirt is, in my opinion, not the best idea because it's going to be hard, especially with only one Velcro strap down here at the bottom, to create the necessary tension across the chest plate. And I'll explain all that in a minute. Okay. I have here, and now these are 2 very different materials, right? So each company, F8, Titan, Overkill, Metal, which is now kind of F8, Inzer, they all have their sort of proprietary materials out of which they build their gear, right? So the F8 poly is a little bit lighter, meaning a little bit more pliable and less rigid, just by touch and feel, than the Overkill, which is right here, okay? So the Overkill shirt is a little bit heavier material, okay? It's a more structurally rigid build, and it's also closed back. Okay, so this one could be a little bit tighter around my shoulders. Again, it's a custom cut. Overkill does all custom stuff. Okay, and so when you do the custom cuts and the custom measurements, you have to get your measurements really dialed in. But you run the risk of going too small if you pull the tape too tight and then the gear doesn't fit, right? Or if you go the opposite direction, it's too big and you don't get enough carryover out of it. Okay, but regardless, the shirts operate in the same or in the same capacity or in the same way. Okay, so let me just slip this on real quick. So if I were to pull this all the way up, it would rest against my chest. And as I come down, the chest plate, which is a thicker portion of the shirt, usually sewn over top of the base material or the base layer of the shirt, essentially loads, right? So it provides support on the way down, resistance and control of the bar on the way down, stopping power at the bottom, and then again, via the pseudo-elastic nature of gear, provides rebound, right? Now the sleeves also play a role. So sometimes with multiply gear, you'll see like, a 3-ply chest and a 2-ply sleeve, or vice versa, or sometimes you get 3 across the board, or whatever it may be, right? But again, the concept is the same between a single-ply shirt and a multiply shirt. It's just how difficult it is to touch and then press in that shirt, right? There are some very proficient bench technicians, Tony Carlino, Jimmy Kolb, some other dudes out there, I'm sure, whose names I can't remember right now, who are very effective in single ply and multiply, and then banded shirts as well. Far better than I, okay? But again, the concept is the same. Okay, now structurally, they're similar, okay, meaning both have chest plates. But you can see, I'm not going to get this up near the camera, but maybe you can see that the the collar construction is different between the F8 and the Overkill. Okay, the Overkill is a little bit thicker, F8 is a little bit thinner. Neither is better nor worse. Okay, it's just how they design their shirts. Okay, but again, gear, whether single ply or multiply, but again, we're talking about single ply, operates on the principle of deformation and reformation, right? So the gear stretches, it loads, it hits a stopping point, which is commonly referred to as the sticking point. Okay, so if you're squatting, you have to have enough weight to push you to depth. If you are deadlifting, you have to be able to pull yourself down, meaning there has to be enough weight on the bar to act as a counterbalance for your wedge to pull yourself into position. And on bench, there has to be enough weight to drive that bar to your chest. Now, when it comes to benching in a shirt, more often than not, is what you'll find is you have to almost pull the bar in, like actively row the bar to your belly as compared to just bringing it down, right? It has to be an active action, an intentional action, right? So again, gear comes in, squat suits, deadlift suits, both operate on similar principles, and bench shirts. Again, single ply stuff. There's unlimited, so there's like the band shirts, there's multiply stuff, which we'll probably talk about at a later date. But again, right now, my emphasis and my focus is on single ply, so that's what we're talking about. And it's a really easy way to get into gear, okay? Single ply gear is often much more affordable than multiply gear. However, it does break down more rapidly. Not to say that it happens quickly, right? I mean, you'll get prolonged life out of a high quality material and a high quality cut or construction of suit or shirt. But because there's only one layer of material supporting that weight and providing that assistance and that support, it's going to break down faster than if there's 2 or 3 or 4 layers, right? So again, squat suit, deadlift suit, bench shirt. They're also, and this is a very shameless self-promotional plug, gear can also be referred to or referring to wrist wraps or knee wraps, right? So again, Stance Custom Support Systems, brand new company. We're working on things. These are our introductory product to the powerlifting market. These are our super heavy duty wrist wraps. Okay. They come in all black. They have the custom logo. They have dual Velcro hook and loop closures. Okay. So one loop, one hook, 2 loops. So you can really crank them down tight and there's still enough room to Velcro them together. They come with thumb loops, so there's a right and a left. And this is my right. Look at that, my right, my left. Okay. Again, very shameless self-plug here. High elasticity, not ridiculously high, but plenty of stretch, but also plenty of casting. Okay. So if you're interested, shoot me a DM and we can talk about pricing and delivery. I'm still waiting on these to come in actually, so I don't have them in stock right now, but pre-orders are live. So if you want one, hit me up. Okay. There's also knee wraps, which is something that we're going to move into. Okay, I have knee wraps being manufactured right now, a prototype that I've designed that we're working on getting manufactured and fabricated. So I'm waiting on a sample for that, and then those will move into production eventually as well, given that assuming that the prototype is effective and successful. But yeah, so gear, single ply, multiply, unlimited. We'll talk about multiply and unlimited at a later date. Unlimited meaning any material, any number of layers. Multiply meaning multiple layers, usually just one material. And with multiply, there's typically polyester and then there's canvas, right? And we'll talk about that as we get deeper into this series, talking about the different types of materials and how each one operates and when you should use each one and why you should or should not use one or the other based on the lift that you're executing, based on your styles, that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for checking out the channel. Again, Stance Custom Support Systems. You can find us on Instagram. Just search Stance Custom Support Systems. You'll find us. We're still building. Okay, we're still in the very, very much the R&D phase of development of stuff, but very promising, very exciting, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing this thing grow. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can hit me up on Instagram. Again, Stance Custom Support Systems. You can also find me at Jimberjacked or at Hammer SNC. Okay, feel free to shoot me a DM, ask any questions, or leave a comment. Please like, subscribe, comment below. Super helpful. And as always, don't waste the pain.